Hi guys, welcome to the Viet Supercars NZ show tonight. We've got a very special guest, Steve Owen, on the line with us. So we'll start off with some questions from you, the Facebook fans. So we've got one from Matthew Gibson here. Steve, how did you feel comfortable with the FBR car after the double stacking that occurred at Sandown 500 last year?
Um, Obviously, it wasn't ideal. We were sort of racing for second, and Richo and Frosty were sort of about sort of 15th. So it's just unfortunately that's always going to be an issue when teams have got two competitive cars. So it was a shame at the time that it panned out like that. But in the end, we got back on the podium, so it actually worked out. All worked out in the end.
Well, that's good. We got one from Johnny Wombat here. Is there any chance of a full-time drive for next year if you do well in the Enduros?
It's always nice, but at the same time, I did 5 years in sort of cars that aren't quite at the pointy end. So it's refreshing to go to the long distance races with a genuine chance of winning. Whereas my last full time stint in the VIP Pet Foods car, we only just squeezed into the top 10 shootout at Bathurst. So it's a bit of a different thing to go there as a part-time driver, but at the same time, it's important to be competitive and try and win Bathurst.
Yes, we've got one. Sean Matthews. What do you do day to day now that you're not no longer a full-time driver?
Yeah, I do a fair bit of racing this year. I'll probably do more racing than the main series guys. So I'm doing Australian GT Championship, so that's about a 7-round championship. Also doing the Spa 24-hour in a couple of weeks. So I just got back from Belgium last weekend. And then when I'm not away racing, I do a fair bit of driver training work. So I work for the Performance Driving Centre out at Norwell, Paul Morris's facility. I also do a bit of work for Porsche. And also do a bit of work for Drive Events, which is Paul Staples' track day company. So between all that, I spend a fair bit of time on race cars and keeps you pretty busy.
Yes, one from Amanda Bock. Who do you think will wrap up the 2014 championship?
Well, obviously, I'm going to say hopefully Frosty. At the moment, he's looking pretty good. Wing Cup's got a little bit of momentum coming back after the last round. But at this stage of the championship, there's so much that needs to pan out. I'd say it'd be down to those two.
Definitely. Another one from Amanda. Who do you think is the toughest competitor in the main game?
That's an interesting question. It's very hard to single out anyone because at the moment there's 25 guys out there that are all professional race car drivers and amongst the best touring car drivers in the world. Even the guys coming last are still, incredibly talented. So it's pretty hard to say that one bloke is particularly better than the rest. I guess you'd have to look at statistics and say that whoever's won the most championships in the last 10 years, it'd have to be, about the standout. I don't know who that is, to be honest, whether it's Wing Cup or Scaife or any of those guys.
Okay, we've got 3 questions here from Alan Sutter. What have you been doing to get ready for the Enduros, such as driver training, and what have you been doing in terms of driving to get ready?
Yeah, like I said before, I'm doing a fair bit this year, so we've got a fair few test days lined up with FPR, ride days. I also did the last round New Zealand series in Pukekohe, the Australian GT Championship, the Spa 24 hours. So a fair bit of time in a race car, but obviously miles in a V8 supercar is what's critical. I've done one development series round this year and had a pole at Winton, but to drive those cars, they're so unique, is valuable. So hopefully I'll do a few more laps next Monday at the test day.
Yeah, another one from Ella. Like I said, we had 3 of them. What is your goals heading into the Enduros?
Well, my job, obviously, personally, I'd love to win Bathurst, having been on the podium in 2010. But my job's primarily to make sure that Frosty ends up where he needs to be in the championship. If that involves winning the Pertec Enduro Cup and winning a couple of Enduros, that's a bonus. So, that's our goal. Frosty's pretty competitive. I know that he'll go to those events trying to win, regardless whether he's winning the championship or whether he's not. So, I love more than anything to have a Bathurst victory.
Yeah. So we'll move on to some of our questions now. I'll start off with Braden.
Okay, cool. So my first question is, I'm just getting it up on my dashboard now. Basically, what do you do to prepare yourself to be 100% on the race day, such as your fitness, your healthy food choices, etc.?
Yeah, leading up to a race, I've got a sim at home, so I spend a fair bit of time, so I'll be on that before the Enduros, just trying to get more track time. We'll go to a couple of test days and ride days and just get familiar with the car. Training-wise, just try and do something every day. So as long as your fitness is at a relatively strong and consistent level, that's always been that's always worked for me in the past. FPR have a physio, so he's there at the track race weekends. He works with the catering to make sure that we get the right meals, what do we need at the right time during the day, because quite often, especially at Bathurst, you can't eat at lunchtime because you have to plan your eating around your stints. So it's a fair bit goes into it, but a team like FPR have the right guys that make it all easy for you. So it's as long as I hold up my end when I get behind the wheel, the rest of it's relatively easy.
Just on that, what sim do you use, iRacing or rFactor?
Yeah, I've got both, but it just depends on the track. iRacing, I think, is the best.
Yeah.
Just to log on to and to race. rFactor can be good if you're good with software and you can download the vehicle parameters, but I can't do that, so I just jump on and play iRacing. But having said that, I don't really like the V8 Supercar much because it just doesn't feel as realistic as some of the other cars.
Oh, I do the iRacing as well, and the V8 Supercar is really quite, I guess you'd call it slippery. It doesn't have a lot of grip, even when you've got a good setup and the tyres are warm and you've got everything right. That's still very slippery, the V8 on iRacing. Do you find that?
Yeah, that's why it just frustrates me to drive it, because it doesn't feel like the supercar, as you know, around Bathurst, for example, it makes wheel spin over the mountain straight, and I've never driven a V8 supercar that does that. So that's why I try and stick to some of the other cars that the GT cars in particular. Having just come back from Spa, the McLaughlin around there was quite similar to the Lamborghini, so that was actually good practice.
So who was or is your idol that you look up to and that got you into the motorsport career, and why?
Oh, I think probably different people. My dad raced just socially when I was growing up, so I grew up around rallying and what they used to call it road registered back then, but it was actually basically improved production. So I spent a fair bit of time around racing as a kid. Then naturally got a go-kart, and then just went from there. But probably anyone of my age would have to say Senna would be your racing hero. And obviously in this country, Peter Brock was the biggest driver around. So it's I think most guys back around my age would probably agree.
Yeah, and what would you say is your biggest fear or crash you have experienced or witnessed on the racetrack?
That's going to be easy.
Yeah, that's an easy one. The big crash I had at Perth a couple of years ago was my biggest crash, about 37 Gs. So it's probably the crash itself was not the worst thing. Obviously, the worst thing was the fire, and it was just lucky that it happened on pit straight. A couple of the teams jumped the fence and put the fire out, but I think any race car driver has seen enough people get injured or killed in fiery accidents that make you scared about that.
Okay, Stephen, you've got some questions, eh?
Yes. You've driven a FPR-built Ford and a 888-built Holden. Which car suits your driving style?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Honestly, probably the 888 car is a simpler car to drive. As soon as I jumped in that car, the first Enduro was Phillip Island in 2010, and I was on pole, so that was something that sort of came fairly naturally. The FPR car is a slightly different beast, and a lot of people have struggled with it, particularly the brakes. And that's just a Frosty thing. He's got a fairly unique driving style, but I can see why he sets the car up like that. So for me, it was ideal to do the Dunlop Series last year in Frosty's old car, and that was driven by FPR to try and get over the fact that it is a slightly unique car. And then to drive with Will last year was ideal preparation as well, because the cars are very similar. So it's certainly a different philosophy on how they achieve their lap time. But interestingly, if you look at qualifying, they end up being hundreds apart. So I think both of them are not without their charm.
Okay, you've been a co-driver at Triple Eight in 2010, FPR 2000 last year and this year. What are the main differences between the leadership of Roland Dane and Tim Edwards? I mean, both guys are obviously fairly successful. Roland's very hands-on. He tends to want to have a look at everyone's or get involved in every aspect of the team, whereas FPR is more, I guess, Tim delegates more, and he has so many good guys in the critical roles that he doesn't feel like he needs to get involved as much. So he tends to be involved more in the commercial aspect of things. But I mean, if you look at the way they're going, this year they're obviously doing something right, because they're winning the championship at the moment by about 100 points. So it's a good time to be at FPR. Yep. One last one. You drove for Matthew White Motorsport last year, replacing Chaz Mostert for the final couple set for the first round, and you drove for Matthew White Motorsport again at Winton this year. Do you have any other DBS drives before the Enduros?
No, not lined up at the moment, but that category is always. I've had a few deals happen on Wednesday night before races, so you never know what might happen. A lot of guys are finding it pretty tough to find sponsors out there, and the way that the category is structured, you really need to commit to doing the whole year to get tyres and that sort of thing. So you never know, opportunities might pop up, but in the meantime, if it's not an FPR car, it's probably not going to be the ideal preparation for the Enduros. So that was why running with Matty White was so critical last year.
Oh, yeah. So, Geordie, I think you got some questions.
Yes. You had a spin at not a spin, but you had a go in the Super Tourer at Pookie in April. How does that compare to the V8 Supercar?
Well, I actually really enjoy that category, and the cost compared to the lap time, when you consider those cars are about a third the price of a supercar, and we're about half a second a lap slower, that's all. I think the category's got a lot of good things going about it. Unfortunately, like V8 supercars, they're struggling for numbers a little bit. They're down to sort of 14 cars. So I hope it picks back up again, because that wasn't my first drive when I did the Enduros last year with Eddie Bell, and also the year before with Jeff Emery. So I enjoy the racing. It's on a great tyre. The cars are fairly reliable. There's lots good going about it, so I hope it kicks off and I get to go back over there later in the year.
And a bit of a second question in that one. How does the Super Tourer series compare to the V8 Supercar series off track in terms of sponsorship commitments and just sort of what you do on the race weekend and pressure and dieting and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think it varies from team to team. When I was full-time with VRP, they were actually a very low-maintenance sponsor, I guess you'd say. We didn't do a lot of promotional stuff at the track. This year with FPR, we basically got a schedule from 7 till 7 every night or every day at the race meetings, and every single hour is filled with either on-track stuff, engineering debriefs, or sponsors commitments. So I think it just depends on team to team on how they go about things, but certainly this year every day we're full of sponsors commitments and on-track stuff. There's really not much time to even say hello to family or friends at the track.
Okay, so last year you drove the FPR car with Will Davison. How do you rate Frosty compared to Will?
Well, I think any of those guys in the top half dozen of the championship are all so evenly matched. It's there's not a big difference between any of them, to be honest. Will sort of goes about things a bit of a different way than Frosty. But when I joined him last year at the championship, he was second and Frosty was third, and there wasn't much in between them. So it's not vast differences, as I was saying. It's just little things on driving techniques and the way they prepare themselves for the event. But look, at the end of the day, Will's one of the best supercar drivers around, and this year he's only probably held back by an up-and-coming team. And Frosty's proven that he's one of the best around and nearly won the championship a few times now, and hopefully he does this year. So, both very good guys.
Yeah, definitely. You come close to winning the Bathurst in 2010 with Win-Cup. Do you think you'll finally get the maiden 1000 win this year with Mark?
Well, that'd be nice. It was both fantastic to finish second, but a little bit frustrating as well, given that it was a team 1-2, and it worked out well for Jamie that year to sit behind Lowndes because he didn't have to pass him to extend his championship lead. So it would have been nice to go there and attack and just try and win the race outright. But the championship is the bigger picture for a lot of teams and sponsors. But for me, I want to go there and win Bathurst, and at the same time, I want to make sure that it all works out with the championship. So let's just see how we go.
Yeah, and the two questions that I had were answered. So that's the first part of our interview with the question part. So now we're going to go on to the next part. We're going to play a few games, and we'll start off by playing first thoughts. So we'll say a name or a thing, and we want your first thoughts when you hear that.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, Stephen, you go first.
Okay, Adrian Burgess.
Pretty sharp operator.
James Courtney.
I don't know James very well, to be honest. So, but he's obviously a very good steerer, but probably someone that needs to feel comfortable in their environment, and I think that's why he's going so well, reunited with Adrian Burgess.
Okay, Boris Said.
Boris, he's like an American Paul Morris. He's a good guy. He's done a lot of good things in the US, and for a while there he was the go-to guy in flat track in NASCAR. So, and when he drove with me, he was 52 years old, and was still probably amongst the top half dozen at Indy.
Oh, yeah. What about Paul Morris as a boss?
Well, he's a unique individual. You won't find a boss like him. He's been around for so long. He's got such a good racing head about him that if he says something, he's normally pretty close to the money. So he's a good guy to have in your corner, and it was all his idea to come up with when we ran the different compounds at Townsville a couple of years ago that nearly won us a race. So he's a good guy to have in your corner.
Oh yeah. What about Tony Quinn, who owns VIP Pet Foods?
Yeah, Tony's a nice guy. I've actually met him a few times this year with Australian GT, but I probably only met him 2 or 3 times over the couple of years that he was sponsoring us. So I don't actually know Tony that well, to be honest, but he's doing good things with GT, and that category is coming along, and I'm enjoying racing in it.
Oh, yeah. I believe Brendan's got a few more.
Yep. So, what are your thoughts on Scott McLaughlin?
He's pretty quick, isn't he? It normally takes guys a few years to get their head around V8 supercars. He's managed to do it pretty quickly. I think it'd be interesting to see where he ends up in the next few years, because he's probably the best up-and-coming guy at the moment. And he's managed to do that in a couple of different categories in New Zealand and in Australia.
What about Greg Murphy?
Yeah, Murph's a bit of a legend, isn't he? He's been around for a while. I was teammates with him at Kmart back when he did the 206 lap, which was pretty awesome at the time. And I also had to race against him last weekend, or a few weekends ago, at Pukekohe, where he won. So I think Murph's he's end of his career was a little bit probably marred by being in an uncompetitive car, but when you put him in a car, he's pretty humble.
What about the up and coming? Well, it's unconfirmed at the moment, but the Super Black Racing team wildcard entry.
Yeah, I think New Zealand's been crying out for that ever since the Team Kiwi days. I actually did a race for Team Kiwi back in 2008 or so at Gold Coast. So I understand the support that they've got there. I remember going over to Pukekohe and seeing as many Team Kiwi shirts as there was HRT shirts. So I think it's backed by, or Paul Radicic is involved, and he's a pretty sharp operator and well liked in New Zealand. So I think it's a good thing. I think to get another car on the grid and have a whole country behind it, it should go well.
Yeah. Geordie, your turn.
Yeah, just on the Super Black thing, they're going to be driving an FPR prepared car alongside you. Do you know anything about it?
Not really. I've only just probably heard the same sort of rumours that you guys are hearing. I don't know much more about it than what I've read in Speed Cafe. I certainly haven't heard anything through FPR. So don't know a huge amount.
Okay. Shane Van Gisbergen.
Yeah, I actually don't know Shane very well either. He's certainly punching above his weight in terms of the guys he's racing against with the resources he's got, and I'm sure Triple Eight don't enjoy getting beaten by a customer car. But no, he's doing well. I think he's going over to Spa next weekend as well in a McLaren, so be interesting to race against a couple of Aussies over there.
Yeah. Your thoughts on the Highlands Motorsport Park in Cromwell?
I actually haven't been there either, so my first race there will be the last round of the GT series this year. So I've watched some footage and some onboard, and it looks like a pretty awesome facility. I think Tony's done a great job there. So I'm looking forward to getting over there and having a crack at it.
Okay. Probably not allowed to ask this one. Stephen will tell me off. But what are your thoughts on David Reynolds?
Yeah, Dave Reynolds is he's a funny guy. I've known Dave for a while, back Formula Ford development series who raced against each other. He's a different kind of guy, and probably from the outside looks like he's a little bit unusual, but he's actually quite a good guy when you get to know him.
Yeah, it definitely seems like that. It comes across like that. What about Jonathan Webb?
Yeah, Webby's done actually a good job with his race team to be where they are now. There's not many guys that can beat Triple Eight, and they managed to do it in Triple Eight cars. So, but obviously, he stepped back from driving, and from what I understand, he's got quite a successful tuning business. So he's doing good things as well.
What about J-Dub?
Yeah, he's a pretty quiet sort of guy for a guy that's won the championship, sort of 4 or 5 times. I think some people think he's arrogant, and he's not. He's just not the sort of lounge, laps up the public attention like most people do or have to at that stage of his career. So, he just enjoys racing, and unfortunately he gets, thousands of people every day trying to ask for his autograph and hassle him, and I'm sure it's hard. I wouldn't like that either.
Okay, so we're gonna do some celebrity ones, I guess, apart from the V8 guys. So I'll start off with a celebrity, sort of a V8 celebrity, but Neal Chapman.
Yeah, Neal's one of the best commentators. I think he's just a wealth of information, and he's been a driver, so he knows all about that. He knows everyone up and down pit lane. He knows the drivers. He comes and stops and talks to you in between the races to find out, what's really going on instead of just basing his own opinion on it. So, I always enjoy Neal Crompton's commentary because I know that he knows exactly what he's talking about.
Okay, Stephen.
Well, this is a real celebrity, Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Sheen. Yeah, he's a pretty loose unit. I actually don't mind his acting because, well, actually, I don't think he's much of an actor. I think he just plays Charlie Sheen in most of his roles, like 2.5 Men or whatever it's called. It's just Charlie Sheen playing Charlie Sheen, isn't it? So, which is why he was so good for the role, and why I've seen the show since Ashton Kutcher's come along, and I don't think anyone can fill Charlie Sheen's shoes.
Yeah, why not? I'm not sure you race against him. Why not Ford champion Marcus Ambrose?
Who was that?
Marcus Ambrose.
Oh, yeah,
champion.
Yeah, I did race against Marcus a little bit. My first year was his last year, so it was a bit of a different end of the spectrum. He was busy winning the championship, and I was busy just trying to get up to speed and be competitive in a new team, which is Brytech at the time. So yeah, he's people have probably forgotten about how good he was when he was over here because he's been gone for a while now. And I think just the fact that he's managed to be competitive against those guys in NASCAR who have all been doing that for since they could walk. He's obviously one of the fastest flat track guys and goes to tracks for the first time and can wind off all those American dudes. So he's a pretty talented guy.
What about Roger Penske, the potential buyer of DJR?
Yeah, it'd be nice to have him involved in the Vette Supercar series because normally he's got a bit of a Midas touch. Whatever he touches sort of turns to gold, and he's got categories sort of, and done a lot of good things in racing. So if he came over here and took an interest in Vette Supercars, I think that'd be a really good thing for Supercars, and obviously to get some big names involved.
Oh, yeah. Braden?
Yep. I've got a question about celebrities. Have you met any celebrities or any celebrities that you would like to meet in your lifetime so far?
Oh, you bump into a few people up and down in pit lane. Normally it's just a hi and a bye, that sort of thing. It's not, I don't really, chase celebrities, I guess. I just try and stick to myself and concentrate on race weekends. But yeah, they're always kicking around, and car racing tends to attract celebrities. You see everyone hanging out the back of Formula One pits with the headphones on. You see all the girlfriends. I'm sure none of them probably even understand what's being said on the radio, but they're all there looking pretty. So yeah, it happens in the pit lane, but I don't really get into it that much.
And what about the singer Pink? Because she was involved with Vette Supercars in 2011 when she did some advertisements with V8.
Yeah, I actually did. I didn't do that promo, so I wasn't there. But I think she's married to a motocross guy, so she's probably a bit of a motorsport fan herself.
Oh yeah. Any more, Geordie?
Yeah, so we're going to move on to another segment, and we're going to try to find out more about you.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with some basic ones. So what's your favourite movie?
Blade Runner.
Okay. What is the worst rumour that has been started about you?
About me? That's a good question. I think that's a good thing about being a little bit low profile is that people don't tend to start rumours about you. So, no, I haven't actually heard one. If you have, you could probably fill me in.
No, I've never heard of one. What's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you?
Embarrassing. Probably motorsport-wise, I qualified on pole at the Australian kart titles a few years ago. I managed to spin on the warm-up lap, so that was pretty embarrassing. That's about the height of embarrassment I would have thought.
Okay. What's your favourite all-time car?
I'd have to say the GT40, the old original GT40s that won at Le Mans and all the Enduros, sort of mid to late 60s, in the classic blue and orange Golf colours, is probably my favourite all-time car.
What was your first road car?
First road car was an EJ Holden, a 62 EJ Holden.
Okay, what is your favourite meal?
Probably Thai, anything Thai. I went to Thailand last year, and the food was amazing over there. So I'd have to say anything Thai related.
You probably just answered this. What's your favourite holiday destination?
Oh no, I probably wouldn't go back to Thailand as a favourite destination, but probably. Well, I'd love to go to Monaco. I haven't been to Monaco yet. I've been to quite a few other places in Europe. Belgium was nice. Germany was good. But I'd really love to go to Monaco for the GP.
What is your favourite racetrack?
I think I'd still have to stick with Bathurst. Spa was pretty awesome. But I think, just everything when you grow up around Bathurst for the last sort of 30 years of watching it, I'd still have to say Bathurst to be my favourite track.
Okay, what's your favourite song?
Favourite song? Probably don't have a favourite song. Don't really listen to much sort of top 40 stuff. I prefer older stuff. Maybe I'm getting old, so it's stuff like Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin sort of era.
Okay, Stephen, do you have any?
No, Braden.
What are your hobbies outside of motorsport?
I play golf fairly badly, but try and play at least sort of once a week. Having moved up to the Gold Coast from Melbourne, taken up surfing as well, which is a good early morning fitness thing. Apart from that, a little bit of mountain biking just to keep you fit and try not to hurt yourself. But most of those sort of things, just anything that can break up the fitness routine a little bit from just pounding away, running down the road is a good thing.
Oh, yeah. Do you have any habits, as in in motorsport or outside of motorsport?
Habits. I don't really have any racing superstitions. I'm not someone that has to jump in a race car from the left every time or wear different coloured gloves or anything like that. Not really, no. I'm sure I've got a lot of bad habits. I'm sure my wife could tell you about them for hours, but no, none that I'm aware of.
All right. Geordie, any more?
Yeah, oh, I've lost off on his paper. What is your favourite sport other than motorsport?
Well, I'm a bit of motorsport tragic, so I watch sort of everything that MotoGP, F1, NASCAR. But outside of that, I'm watching the Tour de France at the moment, even though it's probably should be called the Tour de Drugs. Also a little bit of World Cup, but unfortunately Australia is normally first out of that, so it's I sort of lose interest once Australia are gone. Apart from that, I don't really. A little bit of cricket, but it's not cricket season at the moment. But having grown up in Melbourne, I sort of got sick of AFL and all those other sort of footy codes, so I just generally tend to stick to motorsport.
Okay, so that is it for those questions. So thanks, Steve, for joining us on the show tonight, and hopefully see you on the top step of the podium in the Enduros. Hopefully
that'd be nice.
All the FPR fans will be loving it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few of them.
Yeah. So until next time, guys, that is us. And like I said before, thanks, Steve Owen, for joining us. Don't forget to leave us a like on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, like the video if you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time on the Supercars NZ show.